So let's get started. And I want to bring up my good friend Tahir Johnson, who's kicking off with the keynote. Tahir Johnson. Tahir and I met early on in the cannabis industry, literally standing on a street corner, advocating for change. He is deeply rooted in advocacy for social equity in the industry. I'm going to guess everybody in the room knows who you are. So let's just get this started and hear from his personal experiences. So welcome to here.
Thank you.
And then we're going to have some Q&A.
All right, how y'all doing? Let's see if I can take this down because I don't like to stand still. What's good with y'all? How's everybody doing this morning? All right. So like Jackie said, it's a pleasure to be here home in Maryland. A lot of people, I think, know me for, well, I was born and raised in New Jersey. Most people know what I have going on there in New Jersey, but this is actually still home for me. Shout out to all my folks from Prince George's County. Shout out to everybody in Maryland. So before we get started, just curious to know what type of people we have in the room, like what some of your goals are, what you're doing in the industry. So I know one of the big things we have coming up here in Maryland is the lottery. How many people are aspiring to enter Maryland's cannabis industry through the lottery? How many hopefuls do we have? All right, we got one. All right. And how many people is this like your first time going into the cannabis business? Do we have anybody that's new to the industry? All right, got some new folks. How many people are coming from a completely other industry, like whole other career, something separate, like you're switching over? All right. Any legacy market folks that are switching over, trying to come and get in the industry? All right, cool. So I guess one of the things I like roadmap to success, one of the best things that I can do is like really share my story. I think I actually have a lot in common. Well, I have a lot in common with all you people and you know what you're pursuing. For me, I know a lot of people know about the things that I've achieved, but for me, I feel like I'm still on the same journey, right? Like still trying to make it happen. In all honesty, like my dispensary, they're painting the place now, so we're getting ready, close to open, but I'm not quite open yet. It's been a long journey, but it's a lot of work. So one of the things I would talk about for Roadmap to Success is really share my story, how I did it, how I'm doing it, and always glad to take questions because I think it's relatable. But in 2018, I started out on the journey to get into the cannabis industry actually here in Maryland. I was a financial advisor. I was working at SunTrust Investments. And I started working part-time at a dispensary right in Upper Marlboro called MedLeaf as a bud tender. Man, I loved it. And that actually happened back rewinding a little bit because my dad had got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I was reading about it. I was like, Dad, I think you should try this medical cannabis thing. Medical cannabis was new here in Maryland. And he was like, son, I've been smoking weed since the 60s, man. There's nothing you could tell me about this weed. And I'm like, no, there's all types of stuff. They have like the tinctures, the bombs, like all of this. And so we started learning about medical cannabis and started the dispensary that I worked at was my local dispensary right down the street, started working there. And I fell in love with being in the cannabis industry. And so I quit. It came time of the year where when you're a financial advisor, you have to file your outside business activities. And it came that time of the year and I had to report it. And I was at a crossroads and I said, well, something's got to go. And the job in finance left it. So I quit the 6-figure job and I was making $15 an hour as a bud tender. And it was probably it was financially stressful, different. Thankfully, I was in a position where I could do it, but it was the most freeing, exciting time of my life. I was my whole life just immersed in cannabis. Selling weed at the dispensary, but also taking classes. I think education, one thing that I would also offer for my journey, is one of the most important things you can do. For me, it was like the hands-on education. I definitely don't recommend people quit your job, what you're doing, to go necessarily be a bud tender. But some of the part of education, like showing up stuff like this today, right? Another thing that I did, in education was taking online courses. Today, there's so many different types of information, and even like actual real colleges, right? Like we got University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, right? And that was like you think about from finance, you think of any industry, like you can't look at it, of course, like just weed, like being able to have credentials, like something to back you up, like, put on a piece of paper helps go a long way. So getting that education so you know the game, like really knowing what's going on. So like I took a lot of cannabis business classes. I took a cultivation class at Oaksterdam. I wanted to learn how to grow. I wanted to know how to do all of this stuff. I wanted to learn how to, went to Cannabis Training University, wanted to learn how to make products, do all of this types of stuff. So I would say education and anything you want to do is super important. But cannabis, what I'll say probably, at least for me, the most important thing was advocacy. I think advocacy is so important because we have a newly legal industry, right? And it's constantly changing. For me, my advocacy journey started at the Minority Cannabis Business Association, where I'm happy to recently have been elected the president. Got my girl Jessica, one of my fellow board members here in the building. So advocacy, the reason it's important is, for one, knowing the rules of the game, right, that you're playing makes all the difference in the world. And as we know, cannabis is much more complex and much more difficult than most other industries, and it's still federally illegal, right? As a matter of fact, most is highly regulated, in most cases highly competitive, right? So making sure you understand and know the rules makes a big difference. So advocacy allows you to do that because not only as an advocate are you understanding the laws, but you're helping to shape what the laws should be, what they should look like, right? And I was blessed to have that opportunity to do that. And so it started out at MCBA for me, and then I had the opportunity to go to the National Cannabis Industry Association and start their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And diversity is important in this industry. Cannabis, when you look at it, is probably one of the most diverse things. Like, I'm sure all of us in here, like, when you're passing a joint to somebody, right? That's one of the things that's never like, you know what I mean? It's not been black, white. I mean, like I said, like my pops, going back to the 60s, right? You look at those pictures, it was one of the things that's always been bringing people together. But in cannabis, of course, as we know, one of the main things that has been the war on drugs has such an impact on communities of color. And so us having the opportunity as cannabis is legalized to now take something that has been such a point of like putting people in jail, criminalizing people, and now take that money to now have restorative justice, turn these people to entrepreneurs, have money go back to restoring our communities. I feel blessed to be back home, being able to offer like jobs, you know what I'm saying? Good paying jobs to people, all these types of things that people were previously getting locked up for. So advocacy becomes so important as well because of networking, right? Like I'll tell you, the people that you meet going all across, because so many people are active, right? It's like one of those things that as you get to go around and know people again, like I said, I would offer that advocacy is an important part of what you should do. Another thing that I would say is networking. Never being afraid to go out and meet people, tell people what you do. This industry is so tough. It's not something that you can do alone. It's not something that you can do alone. There's so many different skill sets. Like for example, I was talking to somebody here about compliance, stuff like that. By nature, like I understand the importance of, having somebody that's like an actual attorney, right? That can help to understand how you can be compliant, making sure you have somebody that understands the financial aspect if that's not you, right? Like whether that's an accountant or somebody that has this type of background to manage the business. Marketing is hugely important because you have to be able to tell your story, put your brand out there. How do you connect with people? I'll broaden that and say communications, that's marketing, public relations, things like that. All these are different aspects that you have to have. And then, knowing the business. So being able to network and build your network with people that can help you go along and move along in your journey is going to be extremely important. Man, I'll say you can't give up. A lot of hard work, right? Because I'll say cannabis, this is one of those industries where I promise you nothing is going to go the way that you thought it was. And when it doesn't, you got to have plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all of that stuff. But stick really is like continuing to go hard and stick with the plan. I think the part that of course, going back to me in the beginning of the story, when I quit this job in finance to apply for a license in 2019, I didn't win, right? So here I was, as a bud tender and had to figure it out. So it was continuing trying to keep learning and keep growing and keep doing it. Like this process in New Jersey is now, I'm almost about 2 months from being 2 years since I got the license. And with that, right, there was writing articles about a year ago about me talking about he's opening up next week, but it was still hurdles and stuff that come. So it's like, when you get that stuff, you got to keep going and keep doing it. Of course, finance is one of the biggest challenges that people have in the industry. So I'll say that being able to know your business, like know your numbers, like why, like know how much money you think you're going to make and the why. Like based on like where's your location, what's the traffic that you expect, the demographic information, the average sales, like really knowing the terrain of your business really well is one of the main things that'll separate you from people. Because again, when people are investing, they're really investing in you as a person, right? So it is like saying like your business, nothing is going to build confidence like that. Saying that you know your business, and people have been able to see that you've put in the work to do that. So I would just say one of the things, like for example, just kind of get to know the market where you are and be specific about what you want to do. A lot of people come in and say, say I want to be in the industry, but like, what does that mean? Like, if you're focused on, like again, I know right now I'm specifically focused on the opening this dispensary. Right, so it's like when I talk to people, it's talking about the elevator pitch. Yeah, so yes, that's one thing I took from finance. Every single one of you should have an elevator pitch. Say it exactly the same every single time. Right, like it's just 30 seconds because when you capture somebody, that's really what's getting somebody's attention. Like, and it's not like you're not selling them the whole thing, but it's just getting enough interest to spark that conversation and continue it. So making sure that you can tell your story, what you do to get people's attention really quickly is important. And with that, I will also say follow up. Right, we all come to these different events, get all these business cards, shake hands. But I'll tell you the difference between the people that are going to be successful when you leave are the people that say, oh, I met this dope person or this person that does this, and actually call them and follow up and make it happen and do it. And that is, we live in a world where, we got so many ways to connect with people through social media, right? Like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, sending all these people a request, and then just, like I said, following up, networking, all those things are so essential. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions? I know we got questions and a quick Q&A going on, but does anybody have any questions? Yes, Leah.
What do you think the biggest challenge in terms of getting to the dispensary?
Biggest challenge, okay.
Yeah. What is the biggest challenge you faced in getting the dispensary open?
Yes. So for me, and this is something that I actually realized that I think more people should talk about because I feel like I don't hear it enough. Like we all hear about the challenges about like the finance or like the all these things, but for me it really wasn't any of those things. The biggest thing for me in getting the dispensary open was that really this was when you look at it all in, like a $3 million like real estate acquisition renovation project, right? And so I thought I was opening a dispensary. I thought I was selling weed. But every challenge that I've had, like, is going through it, none of it had anything to do with, like, again, a lot of people have challenges like getting the licenses. Thankfully, because of my background, I didn't. But it was, again, the permit process, right? You have to, like, going through your town to get these permits. working with architects and engineers, all different types of engineers, right? Like I got one engineer for inside, one for outside, like 3 different architects. And then like you had to go through so many, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but in New Jersey, the number of government agencies that I had to communicate with and get approval from to build a parking lot was, oh my gosh, from like you talking to like Environmental Protection Agency, the Sewer and Canal Commission, the county, all of these things. And so that was the toughest part. And then, like I said, just navigating the permit process, the real estate development process. I feel like I've never really heard anybody talk about that part as much. And I think it may be because, like, of course, if you're a big corporation, like when I talk to like one of these companies, they have like a whole department that does that, right? Like internal, this and that. And then I think in terms of like building a business, like a lot of this stuff, like I had to do all myself. So like I was the guy, like I feel like I'm now like a general, but next thing I'm about to do after this is go get my general contractor license because I really know how to do all this stuff because I, manage the process. So, like I said, the real estate, at least development acquisition process, and it really started a long time ago, right? With the zoning, like to find my building, like, and this is something I'll tell you guys, like to find the building, right? Like every town or whatever, they're going to give you they have a zoning map or ordinance of where they'll allow cannabis businesses, but it could be hard to figure out. So what I did was I literally took the map. I drove the entire thing, right? Like I drove every single street in that entire town because some of the stuff wasn't listed. Like the building that I got wasn't even listed. It was originally for sale by owner. So if I hadn't drove by and saw that sign and called them up, like before it was on the market and everybody started seeing it, I wouldn't have gotten it. So like real estate, like I said, mapping out the process, the relationships, going back and forth with the mayor, city council, all building relationships with the town planner, like I had to do all of this. So the real estate part was, the most unexpected. And I think that people don't know that you're going to have to do when you go into cannabis, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Talk about that you quote about trust and that how did the relationship with Wanda James, who is the first Black woman to own a dispensary in the United States, and how did that relationship come to be? And from where she located in Colorado, that she took a gamble on the East Coast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How can I even talk without mentioning Wanda James, man? Shout out to Wanda, man, the OG. I love her. And one of the biggest things about our relationship is, I think, so one, trust is like earned, right? Like it's one of those things that's really important. And one of the things that I've learned is, it really has to be earned because, man, I'll tell you, when you give people too much trust too early, you will get burned, y'all. And thankfully, I've had Wanda here to like guide me and help me. And like Wanda, our relationship, our relationship didn't have anything to do with me getting this dispensary when it started, right? I met Wanda James back when I was doing like some type of virtual, like one of the virtual panels I used to do back at NCIA. And I saw her on the like commenting on it. And I sent her a Facebook message in her inbox in like 2019. And then I think we talked on the phone for like an hour or two, like the first time I ever met her. And it didn't have anything to do with that. For me, Wanda's significance is, even if I weren't open and simply pure, for one to be the first Black person, right? But even say woman and veteran and all these things, like to be doing it, to me means the world. And as a Black person in this industry, my mission has always been to, like, how can I advance our position, like make us stronger? So for me, I felt like the most positive thing I could do is align myself with the first Black-owned dispensary in the country and help to, for one, get all the years and knowledge of her brain trust. Because, again, it's not even like the dispensary operations is most valuable. It's like when I call her up, I'm like, yo, Wanda, you won't believe this like happened. And she's like, yep. You know what I mean? It's like those times when it's like the stuff that like I can't even talk about like in public, but I got to call her. You know what I'm saying? To talk about that's the stuff that really where the value and the relationship comes in. So like, again, like in terms of partnership, having a mentor, like somebody that you can really trust is so important because and that's the way I started, because there's so many people that you can't trust. There's so many people that will kind of see a dollar sign or like an opportunity or want to get in or be close to you or do this. And so it gets at a certain point, like it gets tough to even know like who's real. You know what I'm saying? So like having somebody like that, that's like, again, she's been through all of this. And you'll make mistakes, ups and downs. Like first one, when I told her when I got that license, I guess a year, and I was like, yeah, I'm about to be ready to open in like 6 months. She was like, you'll see. But again, it's like, then there's so many things. And for me, the most valuable thing that I love about her is her friendship and simply pure, again, being a brand and a reputation that people trust, right? Like, I know that people have been taking trips to go visit that dispensary all over the country, and she's built a good reputation and a good name. And something, and also that culture of advocacy, being political, like all those types of things. And so I couldn't imagine a better person, that I would want to work with. So, yeah. My girl, Claudia.
Yeah. And I would like to get someone else being part of Brett and most
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
you. It's okay, be sweet.
Vet and choose those people with whom you want to work. Do you rely on Wanda? Do you rely on stuff like this? Or
No.
how does that
Yeah,
tell us
so
about that?
one of the things for me that I've been that's been the biggest blessing is that, for the past 5 years, my full-time job has just been like in the industry. So when I was at the National Cannabis Industry Association at the time, I don't know how many members it was now, but it was the largest trade association in the country, 1,500 members. So I was traveling all across the country, meeting business owners, U.S. Cannabis Council and marijuana policy, or U.S. Cannabis Council mostly. When I was the head of diversity there, I had the opportunity to probably work with most of the largest cannabis companies and organizations in the world and build relationships there. So like as I've been networking, I've like literally for 5 years, I've been picking and being like, ooh, I know when I get my business, I'm going to have this, that, like the technology, all these different things. But in terms of vetting vendors, as I've been going through the process, what I've kind of used something that I learned from one of my mentors, like a 3 kind of vendor rule. So when I want to choose like a service or a product, most of the time I'll kind of narrow it down to my top 3 choices and interview those, and then kind of make a decision on which one is the best. And it's not always price, right? It's kind of price, relationship, quality of service. Because some things that I've also learned over the past year is sometimes you might choose this one that's the most expensive, these things are the cheapest, but the cheapest isn't even always the cheapest because it costs you money. Like I had the parking lot. I went with the cheapest guy that said he was going to get my parking lot done the cheapest. And man, it cost me the most time. Had to pay somebody to come fix what he did. Man, that was my most expensive mistake. But yeah, like I said, having kind of like a 3 vendor rule, that's been kind of my process.
We have.
From online.
Hi there. So this is from the virtual Zoom. What made you decide to buy property versus lease property for the dispensary?
Yes. So for me, the decision to buy property versus lease property. So for one, when you look at real estate and cannabis, because cannabis is federally illegal, there may not be as many opportunities to find, like potentially lease a place, like depending on what their financing agreement is. So like if a person has a traditional mortgage on a place, you more than likely can't, you probably are not going to be able to get that place. For me, it was mostly location, right? Like I literally, like I said, I rode around and found the exact perfect place that I wanted, and it happened to be for sale. And I had an investor that was willing to help me purchase the property. And when I actually look at the property, because of our location, like all these types of things, it actually is one of the most valuable assets and kind of resources that the business has, especially being cannabis, right? So real estate is the name of the game because it appreciates. Like my building, we were able to really do a lot of development. So like now we bought the vacant lot that was next door. There's a huge parking lot. So like our property value is already increased a lot just by us, the money we put into it. So I would say a lot of times that decision will I know for many people will be dictated by resources. But in my case, like I said, I thought that buying the building would itself be a good asset. And like I said, we just wanted to have the right, perfect location. And so that was the opportunity that we had.
You think they divide
if you buy a building long term and you have a downturn in your economics, you can do a sale leaseback, which is a very common way that cannabis businesses finance their businesses.
Yes, because and that's the other thing. Because like she said, when you go talk to people in finance, like about financing options, most people, that's like the only one that a lot of people will even discuss. They'd be like, "Oh, do you have real estate? What type of assets?" Because like you said, like, and that's the thing. Like the real estate as an asset, as a traditional asset class, real estate is always going to be good, right? Like you might not be able to get anything off the cannabis business, but real estate again is always going to be an asset.
So, Ben or July, you mentioned that you had investors coming in. Can you talk a bit about the economics of those transactions, and are they invested both in the real estate and the cannabis industry, or how you structured?
Yes. So for me, I went through this whole process, like, and one of the things, like I said, having the blessing to have had a background in finance, I had a lot of experience, like raising capital. Most of the times, not for myself, like getting other people's money. But I went through a process where I kind of looked at all the options that were out there that you could have in terms of investments, right? There are certain types of funds that that invest in cannabis that are highly focused on those. I looked at crowdfunding, being able to get a bunch of different people to invest. There's like friends and family. There's all those things. Excuse me. There's again, I looked at what type of people might do lending, and which in most options there were none, because they're like, if you're not already an operational business with some revenue, again, you don't have some real estate, you're really limited. So as I was looking at all these options, I was thankful to actually be introduced to a person. He initially so I have one investor, well, really two. I have one investor that funded my entire project. Thankfully. And for me, it's a lot less difficult because I don't have to go to like a whole board of people. It's not like a lot of people making decisions. Like I can, I've built a relationship with that person. So, again, I'm always transparent. So like, again, like last year I was raising money. I was doing all this stuff. I got a phone call and somebody said, again, going back to people actually investing in you, I had a 10-minute phone call with the person, sent them my pitch deck. The next morning I woke up and he sent me an email and said, hey, because initially I was only raising money for the real estate acquisition. I wanted to do it separately. I broke them out separately. Like the real estate is one investment, the business as another separate investment. So he initially said that he would help invest in the real estate acquisition for me, and said that he was open to investing in the cannabis business as well if I wanted him to. But I initially turned him down on like the investment in the business because I wanted to try to like get the best, biggest valuation I could. I was like, people are telling me like, oh, New Jersey, I should be able to raise money, $10 million valuation, all this stuff. I was like, I want all the money. Like I was trying to go out and do it. But then again, as I built that relationship, as I was, and I actually had, again, to talk about all the different offers that are out there that you'll get along the way, I had somebody early on in New Jersey come and offer me a lot of money and said that, hey, we'll give you this, and but they wanted 51% of the business. They wanted to control it. They were like, yeah, and you could be the general, you can get a salary if you want to be the manager, like do all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, this is my business. I did all this stuff that I built or whatever. And it was like, and I turned it like, so I went back and told my other investor that I turned the person down on the other offer, right? And it was like, I'll be a millionaire right now, but I turned him down. And when I went to him, he said that if you feel like this about it and you really believe in it this much, then I'll give you. We did a better. It wasn't the deal that, of course, anything I would have got, but it was better than what I was initially going to get, and I was happy with it. So I was like, again, so I got the. But again, to going back to mistakes, knowing how much money it's going to actually cost you to open the business is so important. Because I thought that I was going to get this dispensary open for under $1 million. So I went to him and I raised $1 million to, to fund the business initially. and now I'm at like 2.5 million all in. So my deal is structured. I did it through a safe. And so thankfully in New Jersey, through the way social equity is, you have to maintain at least 51% of the business. My brother, also because I was no longer a New Jersey resident, you had to like so my brother owns my business. So I still had to maintain personally at least 51% of the business. So I think now I still got like 60. My brother has 10 and the investor has the rest. But after that, the money, because part of it could only be so much could be equity, the rest of it is structured as a loan. So it's like a combination of debt and equity. And again, like going through like actually the paperwork, like doing this stuff is so important because again, I know it's like SEC registered, like the second tranche is still going through, but it's like, you know, you could go on Crunchbase, look it up. You know what I mean? So again, I know a lot of times in cannabis, people are trying to do things like, you know, just kind of trying to do stuff informally, kind of make it work. But again, I get lawyers, get the right paperwork, get people to advise you. And I'll say also, like the way you structure your stuff is important because one of the things that I did, like, you know, sometimes when you're trying to get business, you'll pay people in equity to help you get started. And I'll say I did that with somebody in the beginning, and it turned out to be a mistake. I didn't put any type of vesting period, anything like that on like the person that helped me. And before I even got the license, like after I got the license, this person told me that they didn't want to work with me no more. And I had to buy them out, you know what I'm saying, back with the equity. So like, again, be careful how you do stuff like that. Put it in paperwork. I know you can like people, but don't, like I said, going back to trust, like, yo, everything has to be, like one thing they used to always say when I was in business, plan your divorce or whatever, you know, when you're going into it, please y'all do that. Because if you don't, like the person that you think is just this smiling person, oh, they love me, they're helping me, we're doing all this stuff together, they'll be gone and they will get you for whatever. Because they like, when it came to it, they're like, oh, well, I have to make up for the money I'm not going to make now because we're not working together anymore. You know what I mean? So just document everything.
We have one last question, and that's going to come.
Johnson has one too.
Oh, okay, from online.
Thank you. I know this is a 3-part question, so maybe they're short answers. I don't know. First and foremost, when did you plan to open your business? When did it actually open your business? What kind of onboarding hurdles did you incur? And what was your biggest challenge when transitioning from an employee to an owner?
Okay.
Take your choice.
So I guess the best answer I would say with that is Simply Pure Trenton NJ Inc. was incorporated in March 2022. We got the conditional license in May 22, the annual license in December 22, and now we are just finishing up the construction, so we're hoping to open in April 24. So you could say it's like a 2-year process, you know, from start to finish. And one of the biggest transitions in transitioning from like an employee to an owner or business owner is, I think for most people that as a business owner, nobody's going to tell you what to do. You got to just do it, right? There is no schedule, no tag. Like, you just got to do it. And so for me, since I was kind of like, even when I was an employee, kind of like in the eat what you kill, like I got to wake up, go every day planning myself business. Like that's kind of what I bought. But I would say that you have to get that. You kind of have to be a self-motivator. You have to kind of be a planner and do it. So that's kind of the biggest thing I think you have to have the transition.
Okay, that's it. That wraps up.
Thank you.